Welcome to this week's Fortnite PvE breakdown. This week we'll be covering building. Building can seem overwhelming, especially since mobs may not behave like you would expect. For this week's breakdown, I cover AFKable base designs and what to expect for your storm shield defense. Before we get started on building, let's talk about the reason why we build this way. And that reason is enemy pathing. So what is it that we know so far? Husks actually prioritize the shortest and weakest paths to your objective. The player, or the hero, is secondary target, unless you're standing in front of the objective, which will actually aggro the Husks. Husks do not see traps as resistance when pathing. So with this knowledge in mind, we can begin to formulate a few strategies. First and foremost, you want to make an unsealed hallway toward the direction of incoming waves of mobs to help funnel them. Upgrading walls to tier 2 or 3, which depends on your level and which area you're in, will deter mobs from attacking them, leaving weaker walls for mobs to flock to. Always make interior walls stronger than exterior walls when building. With this design in mind, you actually use less material and they have higher HP, which you can use all T1 versus T3 on this build. This isn't always 100% foolproof, but it kind of gives you a rough idea on where you should place your focus when building. With all of this in mind, let's take a look at our enemies and how pathing works. As I mentioned before, they will always path the shortest distance and attack the weakest structures. And now that we know what the enemy is going to do, we can break down what type of enemies we're going to experience. First and foremost, we have the Husk. He's a common enemy, zombie-like, and can also come with various elements. If you watched my previous video, I broke down what elements work best against certain weapons. Next, we have the pitcher. The pitcher are the guys in the baseball caps that toss things at you. They are medium-range enemies that throw linear projectiles at the players, which are similar to the female lobbers that wear dresses. Which brings us over to the Lobber. The Lobber throws long-range projectiles at the players and the objective. Currently, there are two types, gas and projectiles. However, you want to prioritize the projectiles. A side note to this is that you can shoot these projectiles before they hit the base, but keep in mind that you should destroy the Lobber first. Then we have the Husky Husk. These are the larger fellows. They have more health as well as damage in comparison to the normal Husks. And then you have the Sploder. The Sploder actually resembles the Husky Husk in size, but it has a twist. These guys can carry propane tanks that can quickly destroy your base. Avoid aggroing these at all costs. If they spot a player within 3 tiles, they will ignite and toss their tank. You could actually use a pickaxe to hit the tank back away from the base, but you only have a few precious seconds to do so. If your goal is to make an AFKable build with traps, do not shoot these from the hallway. The best course for propane enemies is to shoot their tanks as soon as they spawn or to move back and let them go into your trap halls. Traps will not detonate Sploders unless they are aggroed by a player. And if you're anything like me, this will make you rage pretty hard because you usually tell the people at the beginning of a match to stay the hell back. Next on our list is the big boys, the Smasher. A Smasher will charge at anything and destroy everything in its path. The aggro radius on these tons of fun is huge. The best way to combat this is to try steering the Smasher away from the base by jumping away from the objective and shooting them. There's a few tricks to this type of mob. One is if you actually build a backward staircase, the mob will not charge the staircase unless you're standing directly in front of it. They'll still hit the staircase, however they will not charge it. You can also use slow fields or the ability Bull Rush to stop a charge from the Smasher. Next we have Taker. These assholes are the most annoying in-game enemies aside from the bees and blasters. They're basically flying melee ghosts that target single players and deal damage by charging them. They can actually go through structures. To avoid this, you can build a wall to stop charging or use the Bull Rush ability. Our next most annoying mist monster on the list is the Blaster. These guys pack a beam of death that quickly decimates HP if you don't stagger them. The best way to stagger them is to land a headshot with weapons of really high impact. For example, sniper rifles or launchers. Alternatively, placing a wall between them will prevent his attacks as well. Now, these next guys are kind of a talk of controversy, but I personally believe you don't need to target these or make these a priority. And this is the Flinger. Flingers have one weird arm that tosses husks toward your fort, dealing moderate damage. Flingers actually take reduced ranged damage, so make sure to use melee if you're actually going to take the time out to try to destroy them. They're not much of a threat, so just leave them alone, because otherwise a different type of mist monster will appear. These guys aren't actually bad to keep out on the field, so that way you don't have to deal with, say, blasters or takers instead. Then, of course, you have the bees. The bees are annoying because if you don't take them out right away, they'll actually shoot a cloud of bees at you, which hurt extremely bad, and they can pile up very quickly. Bees typically don't have a type of element, neither do takers. One side monster to mention is the Mimic, which they can resemble the appearance of a blue chest. Honestly, these are pretty straightforward. You just used a weapon to shoot or stab them if you have an edge weapon when they appear, and you get some neat little loot. Our next little guys may be cute, but don't be fooled. These little bundles of cute generate a shield around husks to protect them from the players. Take these out first and then focus on the husk that they were initially shielding. On the note of little guys, we also have something called jumpers, and these will spot you within a 3-tile radius and leap over your traps to attack you if you stand on top of your base to shoot. For these little guys, just stand back for the AFK-able bases and they'll run right through the traps, or use a clearing ability such as Shockwave or Dragon Slash. So, let's get to building. And what we're going to focus on with building is health versus cost. So defense health indicates how much health a defense has, which is sorted by level, materials used, and type, as well as health versus costs. This shows how efficient you are in terms of getting health per resource. So this means you want to build with your resources in mind and which map offers the replenishment of used resources. For example, you could use an entirely metal base and easily replenish your resources in an urban map. Many storm maps offer constructors a building discount. So if you'd like to help with the building, try offering to set up traps in the halls and let them build the main base. It is generally not worth upgrading defenses as you are gaining less health per resource spent. However, this highly depends on what level you're at in the game. A level 3 wood defense is generally stronger than a level 2 stone. The full wall offers the greatest health versus resource cost, while half walls offer the least health and resource cost. In summary, you want to generally build as efficiently as possible. But how do you go about doing this? So let's break it down. All of us have done it during an Atlas, or a Fight the Storm mission, and failed to find out if the storm is actually moving. Watch the top part of your screen when the blue glow is first put into the atlas, and it will tell you what type of enemies there are. For example, if there's going to be nature or fire enemies, and if the storms will actually move. If storms are moving, it's better to stick with a small, more efficient trap hall with a fortified base. Think of it like a shoot it out meets high damage with 1 to 2 block halls. These halls may seem small, and you may actually be tempted to build more, but don't. Here's a great design to show what I mean. After placing blue glow, you will be made aware of what direction the storm is coming from. Build your halls toward these enemies with what we mentioned before. You want to be sure there's open sections for husks to funnel or to be pathed to. You want overhangs that clear or sweep lower HP mobs so they don't overuse your large or high damage traps. For example, your ceiling electric fields or wall darts. And then you want to have CC, which slows the mobs, such as your pushback walls and your snares or wooden floor spikes. What this actually does is it allows time for your traps to reload and fire again. So given that, you want to make sure that you actually combine all of these with high damage, such as dynamos, ceiling traps, gas traps, with your pushers and your wooden snares. Be sure to keep your wall launchers or pushers, otherwise known as CC, on the interior walls to push husks into your traps, preventing damage to your actual base. With this in mind, on some maps which are actually marked in the storms, you'll come across mini-bosses. Mini-bosses are generally the exception, usually spawning at 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in the map, and each have their own effect. This boss requires the attention of all players. Unless its weakness is traps, pay attention to what it says about the mini-boss so that you can kill it effectively. For example, tanks. You would use a slow field and high damage weapons. This would also effectively slow it so that you have time to do so. If they are weak against traps, it's self-explanatory. Lure it to your trap halls. And then of course there's ricochet. Bullets actually fly back to you, so everyone needs to shoot this at once to get rid of this type as soon as possible. In large or open areas with a lot of space, you're going to actually want to create a funnel by placing reinforced walls, like we mentioned earlier, with an open section for them to funnel through. If you do not reinforce these, mobs will beat and then break down these walls. There's a theory that they can see within 3 tiles, so you won't need to reinforce outside of 3 tiles of their pathing. If the objective is near a cliffside, be sure to properly funnel with walls that will drop husks near your base. When pathing or funneling off the cliffside, you can also add wall darts to sweep out the lobbers that might hide behind your walls, or the smaller mobs so that you just have to deal with, say, the larger ones or the mist monsters. A popular design out there is actually the pyramid, and recently we learned when building pyramids, you want to upgrade the base to tier 2 or higher and make the top out of wood. But the important element in this is to make sure to build with stairs versus slant roof tiles. This way they'll actually walk up the stairs as long as you've done it tier 2 or higher, and actually go straight to the wooden top. You also want to keep in mind certain storm map modifiers. They can actually affect your building as well. For example, metal corrosion maps, you would use brick or wood. You also want to pay close attention to your elemental husks listed at the beginning. Here's a breakdown of what each mob does to each type of base. Nature mobs are going to deal more damage against metal. Fire mobs are going to deal more damage against wood. And water is going to deal a lot more damage against brick. Briefly switching over to Storm Shield Defense. Now, the interesting thing about these are When the waves come through, you're never going to be able to tell exactly where they come from. So earlier in the game, with Plankerton and Stonewood, you simply need to focus on laying traps. The spawns on any map you're currently playing is going to be random. So unfortunately, all you can do is just lay as much as possible down and create funnel halls as best as you can anticipate. However, you're going to have to just reinforce your base and be prepared to get in there and shoot and or slash depending on your class. With Canny Valley, the tactic changes slightly, but it's honestly in your best interest to create a shoot it out design. So you just want to fortify your base up to tier 3 and maybe create a few small trap halls, but nothing too intricate, as you're probably going to be taking out most of these with your weapons. Or you could just have a dragon or a ninja that is built for sweeping trash. Otherwise, hey, go crazy. Build lots of traps if you have an excess of material. Just be ready to tier 3 all of your buildings and replace tons of traps. I hope this has helped with your building designs on PvE Fortnite, otherwise known as Save the World. If I missed anything or you want to ask a question, feel free to in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tips like these, and thank you for joining me today.